Hello, good morning. My thought for the day comes a little bit late, mainly because I spend my early part of the day in the garden. Gives me a chance to reflect on what is going on in my head and what is around me. And my thought for today is one of probably gobbledygook to many of you, but for me, it resonates to the reality of life itself. You know, we are what we've been taught. We are what we've been surrounded in all our earlier days of our lives. Even our young teenage and early manhood all have a part to play in our daily lives. And what I mean by that is that we can't sit there and criticize others because we just don't like what they have to say. We cannot presume that they understand where we're coming from. For myself, I was at a young age adopted, 2.5 years old. And I learnt about life through the eyes of an adopted child. Of course, I wasn't aware of it at 2.5 years of age. But I was fortunate enough to be adopted by a wealthy family, or certainly upper middle class. And in that, I was exposed to many things that lots of people weren't necessarily experiencing at the time. My American mother and my English father were in a world which didn't really or doesn't still resonate as an everyday occurrence for myself. My father was an author, an editor, and a well-known author, in fact. And my mother worked for the English Home Office. She gained many accolades in her life, and she also started up the first marriage bureau in the UK called Catherine Allen Marriage and Advice Bureau. Now, she was a businesswoman. She was an articulate American lady who, sure, she enjoyed the trappings of being milady, mom. In other words, being treated as if she was somewhat more superior than those around her. But that came because in English society, those that had money, like anywhere, were treated differently than those that worked their way up from the ranks. It's called new money or it's called old money, whichever way you fall. But my thought for the day is not about myself, really. It's about the reality of everybody. You know, I've talked, or tried to, refer to military people who have spent a lot of years in the military. I have many friends who have spent time, some a couple of decades, and therefore I have an understanding that is moulded by not only their recollection, but my own observations. After all, being referred to as cannon fodder by our masters around the world is somewhat belittling the effort that a soldier goes through to learn how to kill people, how to protect himself, how to be a good soldier. But it, of course, relies upon the officers' orders. So they follow these orders generally blindly. And therefore, every morning they wake up in the battlefield, never knowing if next minute will be their last. And to then finally leave the military and find that they're out there in the real world, outside the battlefield, they find that life can be difficult because there's nobody there to tell them what to do. They do it by their own wits. They do it by the way they've been indoctrinated to do so by their masters. In America, the idea that somehow they're the warrior breed is very easy to understand because the masters in America keep telling them that they're patriots, that they're the warriors. Thank you for your service, which is part and parcel of being in America as part of the military machine. And that's what it is. They step on that merry-go-round of becoming a soldier, not so much, I think, to become a technician or to be able to operate machines, repair machines. In Australia and in England, military was seen as, and sometimes still seen, as a means to further one's education, to become more useful in the community, enable you to, when you are retired, to step into the workforce and get those better jobs. But of course, in America, that's not quite the same because for them, it's sort of the end of their life and the beginning of a new one when they leave the military. Often because they spend so much time in war zones and confronting the enemy face to face. They have a different way of seeing things than you and I from Anglo-Saxon backgrounds and countries. But that's not to say that they're not heroes in their own family group. They're not heroes in their little communities. And they are being told by the masters who sent them as cannon fodder that they are brave warriors. And of course, oi, stop it. I apologize for my disruption of my little shih tzus, who inevitably end up interrupting a video. But one thing to remember is that we do what we're told, just like with our parents. They teach us how to do this and do that. And hopefully our masters, our parents, will be able to install a certain amount of pride and ability for the real world out there ahead of us. And when you have a YouTube channel and you try and give your thoughts for the day and you hope that some of what you say is taken on board. But for some, of course, it's just too much to contain in their brain. And I'm being sarcastic at this moment, just for those that don't know. Because, unfortunately, a lot of those that come here to the Philippines, yes, I'll include English people if you want, and I'll also include Australians and others. But generally, I'm talking about the American group. Not all. I'm not talking about you all, guys. Just some of you. But the reality is that that's what happens. A lower class of thinkers tends to come here and think that they've got the answer. Now they have this whopping great big salary in their wallet and thousands and thousands of dollars to spend. But they're going to somehow find that El Dorado, that perfect place to live. Which, of course, after a while, they realize that not everybody is quite so enthusiastic about their presence. For those that go around quietly, serenely, minding their own business, doing their thing quietly, they will succeed here, and many do. But, of course, the thing also to remember is that living frugally is not living poorly. It can be frugal, it can be wisely, it can be careful with one's money. So it goes a little bit further. So when people mock the simpleton who thinks he can live on $500-600 a month, I ask them to think, have you ever tried to live modestly without always seeking out the same as what you had before? There's plenty of alternatives without actually going backwards. And we need to also remember that Life is what we make it. Life is how we've learnt to deal with it. And if we don't have the skill, really, to deal with everyday things, then I think that the Philippines is going to be a bit of a struggle for many who come here. If you cannot adapt quickly, if you cannot mold yourself into what you see around you without having to live like a pauper, but being able to live comfortably, adapt easily, then I think you found the right way of saying goodbye. And just as a passing comment, the warriors that they think they are in America don't mock the English for not being warriors. They've had centuries of being warriors against the Vikings. Remember the Vikings, the Saxons, all of those? You think that they haven't done that before? Do you not think that the English in the Second World War fought valiantly? The people fought valiantly. And I'm sick and tired of hearing that if it wasn't for us Americans, that's what you say, then we would be, English, would be talking German. What a stupid comment that is. But there are people out there that are bottom feeders, knuckleheads, and unfortunately, viewers to YouTube channels. So if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And please remember, you're not the only ones in the world that can think. Bye now.